Welcome back to the Personal Injury Law Show. The last case we've got today, Tony...
Harry, before you get to it, can we just remind the viewers that if they've got any questions about any PI cases or personal injury or anything they want to clarify out of these episodes, to just log onto our website,
Yep.
which appears on the screen.
Okay, well, that's important. Tony, the last case we've got is a case of Brett Dwyer. It hasn't concluded.
No, it's still going.
And it's still going. It's a saga in Victoria, and we're still waiting on the final outcome. But Brett Dwyer, born in 1964, worked as a driver, operating a crane on a semi-trailer in Geelong. Somehow, I think part of the crane fell on his right arm, and he suffered quite a nasty injury to his right arm. Went to Geelong Hospital, operations. He's ended up with a sort of a bent right arm. And the lawyers for Mr. Dwyer went to the Victorian Work Cover Authority and said, this is a serious injury. The Work Cover Authority said no, and they've run the case to the county court. What did the county court say?
Well, the county court judge in the first instance knocked him out. She said...
Not a serious injury.
He didn't have a serious injury, no.
And it went to the Victorian Court of Appeal.
3 judges.
And they said not a serious injury. They agreed with the judge, then went to the High Court. What did the High Court say?
Well, the High Court said that the full court of the Supreme Court should have made their own decision about whether it was serious or not, and remitted the matter back.
And what did the court...
Well, send it back to the Court of Appeal.
And what did the Court of Appeal say?
Well, he's finally come up with a serious injury, Harry.
The Court of Appeal said he has a serious injury?
Yes, yes.
It hasn't been determined
no.
of whether the defendant is at fault, and hasn't been determined how much money he should be compensated.
No, all this litigation's been about whether it's serious or not, whether the injury to the arm's serious. Yep.
And it's taken judges of the county court, 3 judges of the Court of Appeal, the High Court, back to the Court of Appeal.
Yes.
So it's been in 4 court cases, and it still hasn't been determined.
It's cost an absolute fortune.
In legal fees?
Yes.
Is it a serious injury? What the judge said is that, look, definitely had a work injury. The judge said on balance, he's got back to work, he's back at work full time. He's earning more money than he could before the injury. After about a year, he's received no treatment whatsoever for the injury. And the judge concluded, look, on that evidence, it is an injury, however, it's not serious.
It falls short of serious.
Yeah. It's in Victoria, for it to be a serious injury, it's got to be more than
It's got to be very considerable, or, yeah,
very considerable.
Very considerable, yeah.
Yeah, very, very considerable. Didn't the judge get it right? He's back at work.
No, look, he gave evidence. What you've got to look at to determine whether an injury is serious or not is consequences on the individual person. Him going back to work was just one aspect of it.
He made a good recovery.
Yes and no. There was a lot of things in evidence.
There was video surveillance of him working, doing... one judge thought it was heavy work, other judges weren't quite sure, but there's video evidence of him working, and the judges said, well, one judge said, look, that demonstrates that it's not serious.
If you had a look at his arm, the scarring and the wasting, just on looks alone, it's serious. Disfigurement.
But one of the judges in the Court of Appeals doesn't agree with you.
Well, I reckon he's wrong.
And what?
I reckon he's wrong.
Well, that's your opinion.
I would have given him serious injury just on disfigurement. What? Plus, there was a lot of evidence in the court, before the courts, as to what he couldn't do after the accident. Okay, admittedly, he was working, making more money, but it precluded his social activities. There's a lot of things he couldn't do, Harry. I just can't recall off the top of my head, but there was a lot of...
So what?
Yeah.
So they precluded some social activities, so what?
Not some. There was quite a bit of activity he couldn't engage in that he used to do before the accident. And plus, why should the courts penalise someone that's gone out there and tried to make a reasonable fist of an injury? This bloke's tried to get on with his life.
They're not penalising anyone. All they're saying is that, look, if it's serious, you'll be compensated. If it's not serious, you won't be compensated. Isn't that fair?
Well, he's got this nasty injury to his arm. that meant that he couldn't do the work that he was previously doing. He found an alternative vocation. He was making good money.
Yeah.
However, down the track there was evidence he would get arthritis into the future.
Some evidence, but that's not conclusive. Wasn't conclusive.
On balance, you'd think
wasn't conclusive.
Yeah, I think you'd get arthritis based on what the medical evidence said.
Yeah.
The disfigurement was severe. Look, I think this bloke was deserving of a serious injury certificate, and then if you want to penalise him, reduce his damages.
Well, it's not penalising. I mean, it's the damages.
Okay.
The judges just assess damages on a range of cases.
Because you say he's made a reasonable fist of the injury and gotten on with his life to some extent, then to put it in another way, what they should do is, if his claim was worth 150,000, it's worth, say, 100. Reduce it. Reduce the quantum, the amount.
Well, the quantum's determined on all the medical evidence about the injury and its effect on his life.
Any which way you cut it, this is a serious injury, Harry.
Well, didn't Justice Kirby, who is now retired, make a remark in the High Court?
What do you have to do?
Well, I think he looked at the at all the people in the court and said, "What do you have to do in Victoria to get a serious injury?"
Precisely.
And his comment is really, this is an obvious serious injury.
Precisely. That's what I was saying about the disfigurement.
If you looked at his arm and looked at his looked at the damage, it's a bent arm.
Yeah.
And at least one of the judges, I think, said in a common sense way that, Victoria, what are you doing? This is a serious injury. Precisely. Anyway, the case is still before the courts, so we're waiting to see what the result is in terms of, as you say, damages. If there's negligence, he's still got to prove negligence, Tony.
Of course.
So, the case is still going. That's all we've got time for today. Thanks for watching. We'll be back next week with another show about personal injury law. And as Tony says,
keep watching and look forward to seeing you next week.